Good afternoon. I'm Anna Carugati, the Group Editorial Director of WorldScreen. Thank you for joining us today. Well, thank you. Save your applause for the panelists. They're much more impressive. So this is the 6th edition of the Acquisition Superpanel that WorldScreen organizes in conjunction with MIPCOM. On this panel, we bring acquisitions and programming executives to hear what they are looking for, the dynamics in their market, and to sort of get an inside look at the world of a programmer and an acquisition executive. We have a distinguished panel today, and I'm going to call them out right now. First, we have Cathrine Wiernik. She is the Director of Programs at Bonnier Broadcasting in Sweden. Then we have Mike Sneesby. He's the CEO of Stan in Australia. Alexandra Finlay, the Head of Acquisitions and Co-Productions at UKTV in the UK. And Zelda Stewart, the Head of Acquisitions for Mediaset in Italy. So it's too bad you weren't backstage with us because this conversation actually started about 20 minutes ago, so we'll try and pick it up where we left off. The first thing I'd like to say is that, as you can see, we have Sweden, the UK, Italy, and Australia represented, 4 very different markets. So let's start. Zelda, give us a snapshot of the Italian market and Mediaset's role in it.
Okay, well we can start with RAI, who are the most important public broadcaster, and for a long time the Italian market was just made up of Mediaset, the commercial broadcaster who I work for, and RAI, and then pay TV came on the scene, and now pay TV is Sky and the Fox channels. We also have a strong presence of Discovery, Viacom, Disney. So it's quite an evolved market, but it's not just about broadcast. You know, Netflix have already joined the party, and I believe Amazon are coming on the scene soon. So it's very exciting. It's very tough because everyone is vying for audience and ad revenues.
Right, exactly. Now, Alex, UKTV is a relative newcomer in the UK market, but in a few years it has really carved out itself a very good position, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say we're a relative newcomer. We've been around for around 25 years or so, and we are 50% owned by BBC Worldwide and 50% owned by Scripps. Certainly, absolutely, in the last 5 years or so, we've been very fortunate in that we've been very ambitious in terms of wanting to grow and expand the company. So we've had a number of years of successive growth, which have meant that as of last year, we're effectively sort of larger than either the Channel 5 wholly owned or the Sky wholly owned networks, which is something that we're very proud of, and it looks as though we're on target really for 2016 to kind of hit our targets as well. So yes, we're very ambitious. We have a mixed economy of both pay channels and free channels, which means that we have platform relationships that we need to fulfill our relationships with, as well as free channels where we can really sort of grow mechanically as well as editorially driving things through our programming. So we're very ambitious, we're looking to build, and we have a wide range of content there.
Now, Mike, for a relatively small market in terms of population, the Australian market is very competitive, isn't it? And,
yeah.
And in the OTT space in particular. And tell us about Stan.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Australian television space has always been quite competitive and very rich for the size of population that we have there. In the SVOD space, the category took off about 18 months ago. Stan, our business, competes in the same space as Netflix. We both launched around the same time, and streaming in Australia, SVOD as a category is basically Netflix and Stan. There was a third player, Presto, owned by Foxtel, the monopoly pay TV business, which they've recently announced is closing down or being folded into a different form of streaming service. So Foxtel's sort of moving more into the streaming channels and skinny bundles. And so the market has sort of now shaped up around Stan and Netflix in the SVOD space, Foxtel in the sort of light pay TV, and obviously full premium pay TV, and that's sort of the category as it is today.
And Cathrine, as the Director of Programs for Bonnier, explain a little bit what your purview is, because you overlook several different...
Yes, I do. I relate very much, I think, to the situation of Mediaset and Zelda's because we are a very saturated, competitive market. We're very forward. We have all of the big linear media houses as well as all of the big SVOD players around, and it's highly competitive. There is Netflix, Viaplay, HBO Nordic, there's C More obviously, just on the SVOD sort of universe. And I think that everybody needs to consolidate their business in order to optimize their rights, and that's what we've done because I oversee then a myriad of free TV, well, one big free TV channel. It's the biggest commercial channel in Sweden called TV4, so that's sort of our set-off platform for all content, really. It has huge reach, it's a big brand, and then obviously a myriad of secondary channels, a big AdVOD catch-up platform, TV4 Play, and then the premium TV SVOD, C More. So we've consolidated recently into one company, Bonnier Broadcasting, in order to meet the competition and to be able to optimize the rights that we acquire through all the windows and create this ecosystem that can be flexible and optimal to each and every show and all the content that we own. I think that's sort of the competitive edge going forward in a market like Sweden at the moment, or the Nordics even.
Zelda, you too oversee free, pay, but describe a little bit.
SVOD rights, yeah. I mean,
everything.
We have two big agreements with Warner and Universal, and we take basically all rights for the content, which means it's much easier to then decide how to window the content across our various platforms and channels. So a series, we can strategically decide to broadcast either on pay TV or free TV, or maybe give it like a premiere SVOD window before that, which is a real luxury. Which obviously has a cost, a very important cost, which probably at the moment SVOD doesn't justify. The revenues coming into us do not justify that kind of massive investment. So I say it's a kind of luxury that we've afforded ourselves. But we also obviously have about 25% of our budget free to spend on like ad hoc acquisitions, and there we're allowed to have a little bit more fun because we cherry pick series, movies, documentaries, whatever it may be, as and when is needed for the different channels and platform.
Are you finding that acquisitions fit better on your thematic pay TV channels than the three terrestrials?
Yeah, I think there's a definite move in Europe for the generalist channels are always going to be more and more about in-house production, entertainment, a local production, and perhaps free TV secondary channels are going to be more kind of niche and acquisition programmed. For pay TV, it's almost exclusively acquired content, and SVOD, should be a home for everything, I think, really.
Right. Alex, given that you have a bouquet of, it's 10 channels, is that correct?
10 channels, yes.
All of them can absorb acquired product? Or all of them have acquired product, or do some more than others?
Yeah, it really varies. Acquired product is a very important component of all of the network schedules. We do have some channels, such as our crime channel Alibi, or our drama channel Drama, where it is exclusively 100% acquisitions. If you're looking more particularly at our entertainment channels, like, say, W, Gold, and Dave, that proportion is a little bit more mixed because we have a very big drive to invest in originations as well. So there, it's much more of a complementary relationship. But across the lifestyle and factual channels in the portfolio as well, a lot of those do have a very, very high proportion of acquisition. So they're really, really fundamental, I think, in terms of looking at how we drive the business forward. And obviously, being part owned by the BBC, we do also have an output relationship with BBC Worldwide. So the acquisition side of the business is about combining that second-run BBC content along with the first-run and exclusive content that comes from other party suppliers.
Mike, I imagine a lot of your offering is acquired product, and you're starting originals, or you have started originals,
yeah,
right,
that's
Stan?
I mean, as I said before, the business, we're about 18 months into it, and as you'd expect, our first big exclusive shows were acquisitions. And if you have a look at how we're positioned in the Australian market, I'm often asked that question: how does Stan compare to Netflix? Because that's kind of an easy comparison for people to understand. And really, the way the market has shaped up in Australia is Netflix has moved more and more into original productions in terms of filling up their premium first run slate. We've focused, initially on big network and studio shows. In January this year, we did an output deal with Showtime. So all of Showtime's first run production comes to Stan, as well as existing shows that are currently under license with Foxtel. They start to transition onto the Stan platform as well. So, starting out with big network and studio shows, and then moving very quickly into original production. In fact, we kicked off commissioning of our first original production literally weeks, into the business. I look back now at that decision. The business was probably 6 weeks old, and as you can imagine, starting an SVOD service in a brand new category, and that was, a handful of weeks before Netflix had launched. So we were literally out there, brand new category, brand new business, no Netflix in the market. But we had a really strong sense of, the Australian audience demands and needs, and certainly, the Australian audience. The Australian audience is different, like every audience around the world, and it demands localised content and content that they can relate to. So we kicked off firstly with the production of a comedy, No Activity. We're actually just about to launch the second season of that now. So the first season was very successful. We premiered it around this time last year, and we're just about to premiere that second season. And then we moved on to Wolf Creek. So taking the Wolf Creek movie franchise and turning that into a TV series, and that has been absolutely huge for us. And I think jumping into that space early has shown us how important original Australian content is in our market, but also what it can do for your brand. It's been phenomenal for our brand. In fact, as a result of that, as I said, already kicking off the second season of our first show. We've got about 6 shows now in development, and sort of broadening out now. Once we've sort of done a comedy and we've done let's call it a suspense thriller in Wolf Creek, we can kind of think a bit more broad about where we go with things. So we've got some really exciting projects in development, and most certainly there'll be more original content as part of our slate. But I still think for us, that positioning of being, biggest in network and studio content, complemented by originals, is a great position for us with an international player who's building a big original slate.
Right. Cathrine, because you oversee so many different types of outlets, I'll call them, for free TV, pay TV, streaming, C More, pay, are you finding that certain shows are more appropriate for one platform as opposed to another?
Absolutely. I think it's more so than ever before. You can't say that, what are you looking for? And again, we talked about it earlier, which wish list are we talking about? Because C More obviously has a different need, and that's very premium content, whether it's sports or features or local series for that matter, local drama. Again, I can totally relate to where you are, because that's where C More is. Definitely, we are trying very hard to be sort of the local hero compared to Netflix and HBO Nordic, as we do cooperate so much within the company with the TV4 brand and the TV4 channels. So all the big drama brands, Valander, Bex, everything that has a huge impact on the linear and has been really dominating there is obviously also maybe first premiering with a new series on C More these days, and that will sort of set the flow of the windowing for that kind of right. So local is very, very important for C More, acquired as well, but as a pull-in to increase subscription and to really differentiate ourselves from where the other players are. And of course, for TV4 primetime, as you were saying also that you need. Our schedule last fall was, for the first time ever, composed of 100% local production in peak time. That was revolutionary. It hasn't really happened before. But that's how important it is with local in prime time for the big linear channels. Sort of big is getting bigger. everything small medium is sort of fragmented out on the out in the competition and on all the different platforms, and so that's sort of, you know, the situation.
Right. Zelda, you told me once that you buy 1,000 hours a year just for your free TV channels.
Yeah.
Is that correct? So give
Yeah,
us an idea of the volume that you're looking.
Well, that 1,000 new hours.
New hours.
New hours, yeah. So from commitments from previous agreements and continuing and ad hoc, which sounds like a lot, but I'd like to buy even more, if I were honest. I've seen some great shows this week, and I'm always thinking, every time I see a great show, I'm thinking, okay, so where's that going to work best?
Right.
I've seen a lot of Norwegian noir crime shows this week, and I was thinking, where are we gonna put all these? But unfortunately, I haven't bought any of them, so I can't tell the story. But no, it's great when you see great content and you have a plethora of channels to decide which is the right one or which is the right windowing. That is really important. So it's a luxury to be able to kind of decide how to window the product.
Jump in, because you were talking about, I mean, I think we've gone away from what used to be bulk managing, big deals and just splurging it all out in sort of some kind of spreadsheet manner to very much cherry picking. It's really all about tailoring the best content for each respective platform and linear channel. And then of course, if you have a very big exclusive brand that you invest a lot in and that you think can build reach for the linear, can build the increased subscription, that's really about cracking the scheduling of the show, the windowing of the show, where to begin, how to capitalize through every window. We did that with Night Manager, for example, recently. We bought all the Nordic rights, and it panned out extremely well. It's very unique to us to buy a completely original brand, which is not a local, drama, and acquire all the rights. We did the pre-sales to all our Nordic friends on the linear side, and then sort of windowed it Seymour first, for a short window, not specifically long, because we needed it at a certain period for a prime time slot TV4, where we stripped the first 4 episodes on the backbone of Idols, which premiered, kicks off fall schedule with audition shows Monday through Thursday for Idols, which does great to us. And at 9 o'clock, that's sort of the lead of that slot, we put Night Manager Monday through Thursday, and then landed it on Thursdays at 9 p.m. And, that was like hooking people up to the heroin a little bit, giving them all of that, and then, ending the 4 last episodes on Thursdays at 9, and it did really well. Pushing traffic to AdVod, where obviously you needed to be able to catch up, but then driving traffic onward to Seymour, where you say, what, if you just want to watch all the shows, go to Seymour, because you can't do that here. You can catch up. And it really, the interesting thing was, it didn't parasite. None of the windows actually put the next window down. On the contrary, it built and built. So that's a very, I think, strong upside in having the full circle of
Alex, have you found any acquisitions have been helpful in branding a channel or reinforcing the brand of a channel?
I think, our acquisitions and programming in general, it's really, really fundamental to kind of looking at programming brands. If you look at our channel Watch, which was rebranded as W earlier this year, because what we wanted to do was have a more focused proposal where we were focusing much more on the core sort of female mid-30 something aspirational female audience and their families as well. There was a very, very clear shift in terms of what we did with US studio acquisitions last year leading up to that. Previous to that, we've been acquiring, wonderful, high concept, fantastical shows like Grimm and The Strain. The deal that I did with Disney last year included Criminal Minds Beyond Borders and Code Black, so very much going into more accessible, wider ranging genres, which are, I guess, going to hit that kind of core target female audience. So I think that's really key. A number of years ago, we bought Suits for Dave, and Dave was probably up to that point primarily known for being a home for British-based scripted and unscripted comedy. And Suits being the first US drama that came onto that channel, it was genuinely transformative in terms of changing our viewers' perceptions of what they could find there, as well as our own internal perceptions of what we would be able to do in terms of pushing the boundaries with content. And I think that was really, really core in terms of Dave's now one of our biggest channels, and Suits was part of that evolution in terms of evolving that brand. So yeah, it's absolutely fundamental.
Mike, is it essential for a pay service to have programming that your subscribers can't find anywhere else? So is exclusivity very important to you?
Yeah, and you know, talking about some of those first run shows and how we started the business and got into originals, we've set a strategy which has us rolling out first run shows roughly every 10 days on average. We have about 30 first run exclusive shows in our lineup, if you include our original productions. And having that exclusivity is critical in terms of driving people to take up a service and start paying for it. And we've had huge success with the business to the point now where free subscriptions, the 30-day, your traditional 30-day free trial, is converting at a rate of 75%. So 75% of every subscriber who takes up a free trial converts to a paying subscriber. And that's driven heavily by exclusive, big, broad first-run television shows. And we see it in the numbers every time we launch a show. It drives an acquisition spike and a conversion spike. And it's that tempo of, I took up the free trial because I wanted to watch Wolf Creek.
Right.
I kept watching because I wanted to watch Girlfriend
Right.
Experience. You know,
Right.
that's and continuing having those exclusive shows, setting that behaviour is key to the whole model. And it's the reason why the SVOD model without a subscription, without a contract, works, because you keep giving them what they want. You keep giving them the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and eventually people realise, I just want to be on the platform all the time. There's no reason to switch on and switch off.
That's really interesting, actually, that you have a conversion rate of 75%, because I think Seymour was struggling the opposite with that free trial month. Has been difficult. They go in and they eat that expensive, very local, super produced original, and then they leave because we also have such heavy piracy. Incredible competition, and piracy is, I think, a bigger competitor to us than Netflix, HBO, than anything. I mean, we're sort of the cradle of piracy, unfortunately. Shame on us, but really it is a big and strong competition. I just think it's interesting because we've changed the free month to a preview for the first episode of a new show.
Right.
And we're testing that one now to see if that will convert easier and better. But it's lovely to hear. You must have some potent stuff on there then also. That
Well, as I said, I think it's the tempo of shows. You know, you have to
how many years?
And it's one of the things that we've developed over time as we've seen the consumer behaviour. One of the great things on an SVOD service is you have an enormous amount of data. You know, literally billions of data points go into our data warehouse every month, and pulling the insights out of that, you can very quickly see what drives acquisition. You can see the data points that are driving our retention, and we look at our subscribers as they sign up. We treat every single day since we've launched the service is treated as its own individual cohort that's tracked, through our system. So we look at how they perform at, month 1, month 2, all the way through to, 18 months into the service. And there's a huge amount of information that lets you understand. Yeah.
For the linear channels, it's not quite. Do you have the type of measurement that you want? Is a measurement in Italy or in the UK where you'd like it to be? Obviously, some platforms more than others. Does the market need to do more work?
Free TV is kind of over-measured, if you like. It's funny, sometimes the shows that audiences love are not the shows that necessarily investors, so whoever buys ad sales, are interested in. So some of our biggest shows are actually or in terms of audience viewership, are actually harder to sell with the investors. So that's where niche channels come in and secondary channels, because you're able to deliver a slice that is the slice they want. So I guess it's all important. But we're all vying for the viewers, in free TV anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Alex, UKTV as a whole has been doing quite well in the ratings, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been doing really solidly, and I think that's really down to the fact that over the last couple of years we've been really driving to invest in content. So last year we expended around £148 million in programming, which is a 20% increase in the previous year. Like I was saying earlier, I think it's very much about a sort of mixed economy in terms of our originations, the BBC content and the third-party content that's really going to sort of be driving things. To Zelda's point about the 1,000, I think I think our count was something like 7,000 hours last year in terms of primarily sort of first run content and sort of renewals. And, you know, to Catherine's earlier point of, you know, it's not about looking at a list and just picking units and plopping them onto the station. Right. It's very much, you know, we have a team, you know, we're 4 of us in the team, and we are very much looking at each program in a bespoke way to see how we can find the best content and the best hours that are going to fit the individual channel brands. Our channel brands are incredibly important to us, and stemming from a huge rebrand that we did a number of years ago, where we got away from this notion of calling things UKTV drama, UKTV history. All of the channels now have a very, very particular and unique identity, and it's very important to us that we find content which is specific to those. We don't do a huge amount of sharing across the different channels. We don't like to share between pay and free, because we want to preserve the pay value in tandem with using mechanical capabilities in free to really drive those audiences. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. In terms of the non-linear space, I think we're probably not quite at the level that, say, these guys are at. We have relationships with our pay platform providers in relation to providing catch-up and sort of box sets. We also have our own service, UKTV Play, which is an outlet for the content on our free channels, again, on a catch-up and a archive basis. We're obviously looking to see what we can build on that. You know, this year alone, the views were up about 84%, so we're really looking to invest in that as well and to explore other opportunities, for example, content which may not necessarily be directly affiliated with the linear offering that we have, but for the moment, it's very much a kind of complementary equation. And I would agree with sort of what Zelda was saying, and, you know, there's certain things that, for example, you know, they do sort of okay on linear, but they do brilliantly on demand. So, you know, the older British show, The Bill, which we get from Fremantle, that our viewers love that on UKTV Play, and we've never really quite figured it out, you know, why they're suddenly returning, and a younger viewership is returning to a show that's actually sort of quite old. So I think it's going to be interesting to explore, you know, how we can use data and use our viewerships to sort of really get down to the nitty-gritty of understanding what our viewers are seeking, and then looking to deliver that.
Right. Well, I think also what's really interesting, apart from the fact that we're in a cherry-picking sort of content-first, you know, space where you really can't just acquire in bulk and all that, but how key not only what platform, but the whole scheduling is in connection to that, because you can have great content and you can really put it somewhere, but if it's not packaged the right way or put the right exact spot where it needs to be, it's competition. It's so fierce right now that I think that more than ever, and that's why we work very, very closely, of course, with our scheduling, with our intel, with our heads of channels, with our content department, program department, because it is really to the nitty-gritty of, there's more smartness than ever put into a success these days than before.
And not just scheduling. I mean, you know, at UKTV we've got amazing kind of marketing and comms teams as well. So basically, you know, once we get to the scheduling, it's then about them sort of going out in what is a very, very competitive and dynamic market. You know, UKTV does not, on an individual channel basis, yet have the scale of the bigger terrestrials. So obviously, you know, if I don't know, a big new commission is coming on the BBC, we need to be very careful that we're not launching a new origination or a big new US studio show there, because we need to be careful about making sure that things are getting lost in the mix, and, you know, maximizing those marketing opportunities and comms alone. I mean, the value that our comms team delivers in terms of press and PR, when you quantify that, you know, we're talking about millions of pounds, and that is all part of the same thing of just trying to punch through and punch above our weight.
Right. It's harder than ever to get something to launch new stuff, period. I think, again, I was saying big is getting bigger. When I say that, for example, in our prime time on the flagship channel, it's about not old brands, big brands. It's Idols is strictly like, you know, everywhere else, but really bigger than ever, because what's big on the linear prime time is now as big on our AdVOD, on our TV4 Play. And I think if we'd add the numbers together for the big flagship shows, that seriously is like campfire viewing more than ever, they are bigger today than they were 10 years ago. We have Farmer Wants a Wife, we have Master Chef, and they're still going so strong. They are lifting the schedule, and it's so difficult to find new, launch it, market, place it, and make it work. So it's so important and key to keep revitalizing and working on your big brands. At the moment, at least, that's how it is.
And make sure they fit in with the channel identity as well, because I think it's very easy to have big channels where you just kind of showcase shows, but that is not a kind of winning strategy. You need to go right down to the nitty-gritty and see who you really want to go after, what that means to advertisers, how many consumers or viewers you're looking at, and then find the programming to fit.
You know, I mean, it's really about being where the consumer and the viewer wants you sort of to be with the right stuff, because, you know, families, even like our core linear audience is leaving us slowly but surely, and they're all sitting with 4 different screens in the evening at home, and, you know, that's what we're competing with. It doesn't mean they're not watching our content. We have fantastic sort of news right now because we just implemented login for our ad VOD. It's free, it's ad supported, but we want more data, obviously, like everybody else. And so we started that, I think, in May. And we're a huge platform, we really, really are. And the thing is that we had, for year's end, 1 million subscribers logged in. That was the goal. We're already way past 1.5 million, and we're only beginning October. So that means they want our content. They can even bother to sort of log in because it is a big risk, and we thought we'd like drop more than we did. So that is that's a positive sort of for the put levels going down, but still.
For any of you, the question is for all or any of you, you need so many rights, depending on what your outlets are. How difficult is it for you to get the rights that you need? And is it just a matter of money, or is it a matter of...
Always a matter of money.
Just a matter
It's
of money.
always, it's always a matter of money, I'd say. And sometimes distributor and studio expectations are higher than the actual comeback. So that's a problem. And is it sustainable? Maybe if you're a global or multi-territory operator, then the economy of scale means it makes sense, but when you're just operating in one market, you have to be very careful how you spend your money.
Exactly. I totally agree, and it's really, I mean, we used to say, oh, we want all rights, we need all rights. You know, that's obviously a very expensive strategy to keep. So it's very much about understanding the function of each right that you acquire and what is worth what. What sort of mission does this right actually have? If that's exclusive, bring in, creating reach and all that, or if it's just really a linear viewing. I think we're actually backing up a little bit now, also saying we don't need all rights for everything, obviously, and some rights are okay just with a linear function because we have a given slot for something, and with a limited catch-up right, that's all we need. And that used to be, at least when the whole digital arena exploded, unheard of. You know, we were sort of clinging to we need all the rights, but
Yeah, I think rights are a big thing. I think also utility, which maybe you treat as the same thing. For me, it's very much separate. I think there's a whole situation of kind of non-linear rights, which are incredibly competitive in the UK. I think you have platform providers like Sky who are moving into the area of box sets, and they expect that their pay channel partners will be looking to kind of do the same. Then within the free space with free VOD and AVOD, Zelda, to your point earlier, I mean, you know, looking at the sort of revenue return on that, it's not something which is, you know, particularly awe-inspiring at this point. So it is very much kind of looking at how you can mitigate that risk while sort of spreading it out. But I think also to the utility point, there's also the sort of technological side of looking at things like side loading and other things which, you know, probably, I guess, have a commercial value to the viewers, and therefore the likes of the studios are also viewing that as having a commercial value. The question for us is, you know, how do you find that that middle ground between actually getting everything you need and actually just overexpending on something that's never going to recoup? And frankly, that's not good for any of us. Right. If we're having to kind of overexpend, and in the long run, it's not going to be paying off, you know, because that's going to impact on distributors and on platforms and everybody else. So I think it's an interesting time right now because it feels as though, certainly in the UK, everybody is sort of wanting everything. And I think there's going to come a point where we need to kind of be a little bit more refined in terms of prioritizing where we stand.
But it is so complex with the third window being the SVOD at the moment, because, for example, if we do need stacking rights. If we were, you know, if a serialized something, you know, whatever show on whatever channel is to work, people need to go in and catch up from the first and second episode. Absolutely. And we know that that right will have us, you know, buy out the SVOD window if we are to have the stacking rights. And that is a problem, and it actually does make us back away from really important big shows that we want, because we can't create that that circle of stacking it on our ad VOD as well. And maybe it's not the content that our Seymour or our SVOD player wants. So that, I think, is a difficult, complex situation when acquiring certain shows.
Also, another important point for me is because a lot of our agreements look quite far into the future. And so we have agreements that are still active in, say, 2025. So that means having like a crystal ball and trying to see how all these businesses, in terms of utility, rights, windowing, exclusivity, how that's going to pan out.
Yeah. And I think it's also, to Catherine's point, it's also about, just looking at something very basic like shows that are returning. Catch-up now is just so fundamental in terms of, we had a situation a couple of years ago with a show which had gone from seasons 2 to 3 and had really declined. And we went back to the studio and we sort of said, you know what, you need to be giving us more catch-up on this because we're going to be repeating it in linear. It is not in your interest for this to be declining because we're not going to be continuing to pick up the show. So again,
Name
it's
the
also
studio.
about,
Did they?
they were, I won't name them, but they were incredibly supportive and they got it. Because ultimately, we are kind of all in this together, and I think we do get into situations where obviously, there can be sort of, commercial conflicts whenever you're having these big discussions, but ultimately, we all do want shows to be returning. We want them to be performing well.
Right.
We want them to be staying on their home channels because that's what drives all of our business.
We are all in the same boat. You're really right, and you can feel that the studios are actually also getting there. We as opposed to the big output deals we used to have, where we got so much deal tax and so much product we couldn't use, and it was just expensive as hell, and it really messed up all the inventory. All of a sudden, we actually have fantastic deals, slimmed feature film deals with Warner, with Paramount, with MGM, where we really get what we need, and we're willing to pay for that because it does a great job on our platforms, but mostly in our linear channels, on our lead outs, late prime. And so it's justified, but it's really revolutionary to say that we can get a strict, slimmed volume deal with, for example, Warner with feature. It's great that it's both ways now, and it's just not us screaming, come on. Yeah. We need to understand that the world is changing.
Well, it's a pity to interrupt because I'm so glad I really wasn't needed that much. You guys have been fantastic. But now we want to move into the next portion of our session. As I said at the beginning, this is our 6th edition of this Acquisition Superpanel. And and WorldScreen has been doing it with MIPCOM since our first one. And what the panel does is not only inform you about what's happening from very professional individuals in their markets and what their needs are. We also like to recognize the contributions that they've been making to the, I don't want to say television industry because it's so much more than television, the media industry. And so I'm going to invite Lucy Smith to join me right now, and we would like to recognize their accomplishments by awarding them the Content Trendsetter Awards. So.
Thank you. That was a wonderful session, by the way.
Thank you. You want to start?
Cathrine, if you would like to come and have your WorldScreen Content Trendsetter Award.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mike?
Do the photos.
If you
Would you stay here? We'll do some photos.
We'll take one picture together and then a group one later. Excellent. Okay, go ahead, Dave.
Alexandra.
And Zelda.
No one took one.
Excellent. Let's have a group
Let's all
picture
get
now.
together and
You may applaud now.
Thank you.
You're going to be in, yeah, we'll book it.